My parents forced me into an arranged marriage to secure a business deal. What they didn't know was that a week before the wedding, I made a secret move that would change everything. At the reception, my father stood up and announced my new husband would be the next CEO of his company. That's when I lifted my glass, smiled, and with one sentence, set their entire world on fire. Before we get to the wedding, I'd love to know, what city are you watching from today? And be sure to subscribe for our daily stories. Okay, let's head to that tense family dinner. In my father's house, love was a transaction. I wasn't a daughter, I was an asset, a polished piece on his corporate chessboard. My father, Conrad Hawthorne, didn't have conversations, he held meetings. He built a life where even birthdays came with agendas. That night, he summoned me to his paneled study. The fireplace was lit, but gave off no heat. Framed oil portraits of ancestors watched like they'd seen worse. My mother, Marian, sat in a silk armchair with the posture of someone bracing for impact. Hands folded on her lap, a smile trained for photos, not feelings. She smoothed an invisible wrinkle on her skirt, a tell I knew from childhood. She wasn't a mother, she was the COO of our home, responsible for logistics and optics. Somewhere along the way, love had been outsourced. "Good news, Sienna," my father said, in the crisp tone he used when a deal was already done. "The merger with Macmillan Industries is nearly complete. It will position our firm at the top." I nodded, because that's what I'd been trained to do, be agreeable furniture. "However," he continued, "there's one final condition. They value stability, family. They want a public union of our houses." He let the words hang long enough to sting. "You will marry their son, Preston, 1 month from today." The silence that followed had weight. An arranged marriage to a man I barely knew and disliked. I thought of the last charity gala we'd all attended, the way that Preston had addressed the waiter without looking at him, the way he'd called my work cute. "Dad, I can't do this," I said. "It's not working. I need more than you can give." He blinked, processing. "Tell me what you need. I'll get a second job. I'll teach. "It's not about money," I said. It was the only true thing in the lie. "It's about us." His mouth opened and closed. His eyes, honest, unguarded, went tight. I thought. He didn't finish. He didn't yell. He didn't plead. He just stepped back from me like I was suddenly too bright to look at. The studio smelled like turpentine and coffee and the lemon oil he used on his easels. There was a sketch of me on the table, unfinished, my mouth an undecided line. I walked out with that scent on my dress like a fingerprint, telling myself I'd protected him, telling myself this was the cleanest cut. I didn't make it 10 feet before the door banged open. "Sienna, wait!" I kept walking. If I turned, I'd shatter. "That was a lie," he said, closer now. Not broken, furious. "I know your tells. Your left hand is shaking. You only lie to protect someone. Turn around." I stopped. Rain tapped the sidewalk. City light turned puddles into coins. "Let me go, Ethan. It's better this way." "No." His hand found my shoulder, steady, warm. He turned me gently. "Tell me who you're protecting." So I did. In the gray light, with buses sighing at the corner, I told him about the merger, Preston, and the threat that had tied a knot around my throat. He listened, jaw tight, eyes burning, not at me, at them. "So that's his leverage," he said quietly. "He thinks he can buy you. He thinks he can scare me." He held my gaze. A plan slid into place behind his eyes. He's wrong. He tugged me back into the studio. The rain turned from steady to soft behind us. He wants a wedding in a month? Fine. You will give him his spectacle. You'll smile. You'll say the lines. He stepped closer. But you will not be his wife, because by then, you'll already be mine. What are you saying? We don't run. We don't hide. We make the truth legal before the lie ever happens. It won't stop him. He'll find another way. Maybe, but he won't use you to do it. We called the only lawyer I trusted, the one who had coached my debate team, then left corporate law for a quiet practice 2 towns over. Miss Patel answered on the second ring, listened without interrupting, then said, "Come now." Her office was small and sunlit, the waiting room full of plants that looked watered, not staged. She wore flats and a sweater, and the kind of attention that makes hard things sound manageable. "You're adults," she said, after we laid it out. "You can marry anywhere in the state. A license filed with the county is valid statewide under full faith and credit. Marital status is public record. A subsequent ceremony without dissolution of the first marriage is not a marriage. It's theater." "What about the prenup they'll spring on me?" I asked. "Don't sign anything you don't understand. You can delay a prenup until after a ceremony. If they pressure you, smile and ask for counsel. They like power. They hate delays. Use that." She slid a form across the desk. "Get 3 certified copies of your certificate. File 1. Keep 1 in a safe place. Mail 1 to a person who will make a problem if it disappears." "Like a reporter," Ethan said. Miss Patel's mouth twitched. "I didn't say that. I said a person who makes problems. 2 different jobs. Occasionally the same person." A week later, on a Tuesday the world didn't care about, we drove to a small town that didn't know our last names. The clerk at City Hall had a crossword open to 17 across. She stamped our forms. 4 letters, truth told on a witness stand. "Oath?" Ethan offered. She smiled. "You'll do fine." Ruth and Earl, 2 retirees waiting for their bus, signed as witnesses after we offered to buy them lunch. "We eloped in 72, Ruth said, beaming. "No fuss, no photos. 50 years next spring." We walked across the street to a diner with cracked vinyl booths and ate grilled cheese that tasted like childhood. Earl gave us advice that was either trite or holy depending on the day you heard it. Forgive quickly, say what you need in the same room, don't keep score. Back at City Hall, the justice of the peace pronounced us married. The stamp's thump felt like a door unlocking. My dress was a $10 sundress. His suit had paint on the cuff he couldn't scrub out. Our vows were plain. Show up, tell the truth, choose each other even when it was hard. We mailed 1 certified copy to the county recorder and 1 to Miss Patel from the blue mailbox outside. We took the 3rd to a bank and put it in a safe deposit box. We scanned it, watermarked it, and scheduled an email to the Council of Hawthorne Macmillan's board timed for the reception. We drafted a short statement, factual and polite, and left it in Miss Patel's outbox with instructions to send only if my father smeared Ethan. We wrote a note to a business reporter who had famously disliked my father's methods and scheduled it, too, with the certificate attached. We set our clocks. We set our nerves. The next weeks were a study in performance. By day, I was fitted for a dress that wasn't mine, posed for photos I didn't want, tasted cake I'd never eat. The planner spoke in budgets and timelines, My mother spoke in flowers and guest lists. My father spoke in numbers and names. He tried to spring a prenup at a tasting. 30 pages slid across white linen with a fountain pen on top. "Just standard," he said. "Sign so we can enjoy this." "Of course," I said, and smiled. "We'll need counsel." I tucked the folder into my bag and changed the subject to peonies. He hated delays. I watched it pinch his mouth. At the rehearsal dinner, he gave a toast about legacy, the Hawthorne name, what it meant to join forces with a family equally committed to excellence. People laughed in the right places. Preston raised a glass and addressed the room like he was already in charge. "To the future," he said, "to scale, to the next chapter." His hand rested on my chair like a claim. After dessert, my mother found me in the hallway. "You could tell us if you're unhappy," she said, voice soft and wrong in her own mouth. It startled me, this little flare of something like care. I wanted to ask her if she remembered the last time she chose me over him. Instead, I said, "I'm fine, Mom," and watched the relief wash over her like a drug. At home, I lay in the dark and felt the thin chain with the real ring warm against my skin. I texted Ethan a single word: steady. He replied with the photo of Ruth and Earl's joined hands over a diner table. Wedding day. I woke before the alarm, calm as stone. The house buzzed with vendors and cousins and florists. My mother floated in and out, trailing pins and perfume. "You look stunning," she said, eyes shining for the cameras. "Preston is a lucky man." "Yes," I said, "he is." Preston and I were allowed 5 minutes alone for a touching moment a planner had timed. He used them to list offices he planned to renovate. He said, "We'll need to change the boardroom art, and I'll want Macmillan on the glass in the lobby, large."
"I'll defer to your taste," I said, and checked the time. Miss Patel's message popped up. Certificate recorded at 9:02. Board council scheduled for 8:45 p.m. Reporter at 8:50. We were already in motion. I walked down the nave on my father's arm like an artifact carried to auction. The ceremony was all marble and echo. I said the words. When I whispered, "I do," my fingers brushed the chain at my collarbone. I was already a wife. The ballroom reception was flooded with light and money, crystal everywhere, a string quartet in the corner playing songs no one listened to. I danced the first dance with the man I did not love. He talked about the market. I let my face do what it was trained to do: agree, soften, impress. When the song ended, my phone buzzed in my clutch. One line from Ethan: "Ready when you are." On stage, my father took the microphone. He spoke like a man narrating his own documentary. "Tonight we celebrate not just a marriage, but a union of vision." He thanked donors, name-checked the governor, slipped in a joke that landed. He was charming, powerful, perfectly pleased with himself. Then he lifted his hand. "And with that," he said, voice swelling, "I am honored to announce that the board of our newly merged company has unanimously approved my choice for the next CEO." He turned, palm extended toward Preston like a blessing. My new son-in-law, Preston Macmillan. The room rose to its feet. Cameras popped. Checks were mentally written. Preston squeezed my fingers like a claim. "See," he whispered, "worth it." My father raised his palm for quiet. "And now," he said, benevolent, "a few words from the bride." I walked to the stage, took the microphone, and looked out at 500 faces waiting for gratitude. I gave them what they expected. At first, "Thank you, Daddy," soft, sweet. "And thank you all for being here. Today has been a dream." I turned to Preston and smiled the smile they taught me in finishing school. "To my husband," I paused and let the word change shape. A small correction. The room stilled. Somewhere in the back, a glass chimed against a plate. "My father spoke about unions," I said, voice clean and even. "He's right. Legal ones matter."
I looked at the reporters in the corner. 2 phones were already in the air. I settled my gaze on my father, which is why his announcement is premature. Preston is not my legal husband. Air left the room. This was the silence that comes before a storm. You see, I said, steady, I married the man I love last week, at City Hall. Witnesses, license, filed and recorded. Binding. My mother's hand flew to her pearls. My father went gray. Preston stared, his smile sliding off like bad paint. My phone buzzed in my clutch. 1 line from Ethan. Ready when you are. The double doors swung open. Ethan walked in wearing a dark suit that fit him, not an occasion. He held car keys. He found me and smiled. Ready to go, Mrs. Cole? I let the microphone fall. The sound cracked through the room like a starter's pistol. I stepped off the stage. People parted. An older woman I'd known since childhood, or known in the way one knows donors, reached out and squeezed my hand as I passed. Good girl, she whispered, surprising me. My father's voice followed me. First my name, then security, then something about fraud that meant nothing in the face of recorded documents. The head of security, who had taught me to ride a bike in the company parking lot when I was 8, did not move. I reached Ethan. He took my hand, calloused, familiar, kissed my knuckles, and whispered, breathe. We walked out under the chandeliers as whispers turned to shouts. The lobby air felt new. The valet stammered, then grinned when he saw where we were headed. Our car wasn't a limo. It was Ethan's battered truck that smelled like linseed oil and coffee. I stuffed Tool into the cab and climbed in. He handed the valet a fistful of bills and said, sorry about the glitter. We pulled away as cameras flashed and a planner sobbed into her headset. At the first red light, Ethan reached over and tucked a curl behind my ear. I laughed, a sudden, life-heavy sound. He laughed too. It wasn't graceful. It was real. That night, in our loft 2 cities away, we ate takeout on the floor. I hung the chain with my ring on the lamp and slid the band back onto my finger where it belonged. My phone lit with calls from unknown numbers, and one from my mother that I didn't answer. I wrote a 2-line email to the only board member who had ever looked me in the eye and signed it, Sienna Cole. Then I put my phone face down and slept for the first time in months. The fallout was swift. Contracts contingent on a marriage collapse when the bride isn't free to marry. The press had a field day. The board met without my father that week. Macmillan pulled out, citing inconsistencies. Op-eds debated legacy and hubris. There were photos of me in my dress climbing into a pickup and photos of my father leaving a building without looking at cameras. Miss Patel texted a thumbs up, and then later a photo of our certificate stamped recorded. A month later, I met my mother for coffee in a quiet cafe. She looked smaller without the house around her. She took off her sunglasses. You humiliated us, she said without heat. I told the truth. I told it after I made sure it was the truth. She stared into her cup. He'll never forgive you. I don't need him to, I said, surprised at how true that felt. She looked up. Are you happy? I said. I thought about the studio, about mornings that smelled like coffee and primer, about laughter that didn't sound like a performance. Yes, I said. She nodded like that answer was both a loss and a gift, then stood, smoothed her skirt, and left without hugging me. It was the closest we'd ever come to honesty. A year later, our life is not grand. It's good. We live in a sunlit loft in a city where no one cares about the Hawthorne name. The space is home and studio. I've learned to prime canvases and stretch them tight, to wrap work for shipping, to talk to curators without apologizing for the size of a dream. I work part-time at a small art museum that pays in decent checks and better company. I write labels that make people stop and look. I manage a painter whose work is finally being seen. He's humble about it. He signs his emails E. Cole, like he can't believe the name travels that far. We keep the $10 sundress in a shadow box on the wall, a reminder that the most important vows can be said under bad lighting with 2 strangers as witnesses. Every Tuesday, we go back to City Hall,
not the same one, but a local one, and we sit on the steps with coffee and watch couples go in and out. We cheer for people we don't know.
Sometimes I think about my father. Not often. When I do, I feel a distant ache like weather in an old scar. He hasn't called. He doesn't know how to speak a language that isn't control. That's a loss I can live with. I spent years believing love was a spreadsheet, assets, liabilities, leverage. I was wrong. Love is a decision, a revolt, a simple promise made in a small room with bad lighting and two strangers as witnesses. It's standing on a stage and telling the truth because you built a life on it a week earlier, and you'd rather burn a ballroom than lie again. I didn't just escape a bad deal. I closed the best one of my life. An unforgettable story of a secret wedding and a perfectly executed escape. What a mic drop. What do you think of Sienna and Ethan's plan? Tell us in the comments. If you were cheering for this couple, hit like and subscribe for more stories of karma and justice. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.